Ladies and gentlemen, it is the, I guess, Monday after the most recent jobs report. Everything's a little thrown off since it was Easter weekend. Hope everyone had a happy Easter and a happy Resurrection Sunday. Always joining us to talk about the monthly jobs report as soon as it comes out is our friend. He is the chief economist for the Center on Budget. We've been doing this. We've been having our monthly conversations for years now. We always appreciate his analysis. Again, the chief economist, centeronbudget.org, our dear friend, Chad Stone. Hey, man, how are you? Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, Mark. I'm good. Hope you are too.
I'm good. You know, we all just keep plugging right along.
Right.
And so this jobs report, in terms of the sheer numbers and increase, isn't bad either, is it?
No, it's good. We had 916,000 jobs added in March, and some revisions to January and February, so that we added a million jobs to the total that we thought we had last month, and so that's really good. And in fact, in both in February and March, we doubled the previous month's total jobs added. And so we've now lowered the jobs deficit to 8. Sorry, I think I have it right. 8.4 million.
8.4 million.
And that's still a very large number. So we still have a long way to climb out of this hole. But just a couple of months ago, it was 10 million. So we're making progress.
Yeah. Yeah. So folks, what Chad is saying, even though there were almost a million jobs, we're still at this place of deficit going back to February 2020. So now I guess that we can attribute this payroll employment increase, 916,000, to more people being vaccinated. Is that probably where we should look at that, and people going back to work as a result of being vaccinated?
The vaccination is certainly helping. Yes, people are going back to work. The economy is opening up more. There's some additional stimulus in the economy from the December package that distributed the first part of the stimulus payments, and added some money to unemployment insurance benefits, and then the American Rescue Plan Act, enacted just a little while ago, is also starting to kick in, but that's gonna be kicking in, and that also has money to accelerate the virus, the vaccinations, and so everything's going in the right direction, which is good, and we're seeing tangible progress.
Now, and again, folks, this is why I didn't do well in micro and macro. 916,000 jobs went up, created, but the unemployment rate still went up too.
Yeah, the unemployment rate actually went down from 6.2 to 6%.
Oh, it did go down. I'm sorry,
it went down. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so that's the thing.
And as we've talked about, the unemployment rate is not the best indicator of the actual amount of joblessness. Now, the first number we talked about, the 960,000, that is the answer that employers give to how many jobs do you have you added to your payrolls, whereas the unemployment rate asks households,
right.
Are you working or looking for work or not working? And so they're different surveys, and they give slightly different answers. But the unemployment rate, in order to be counted as unemployed, you have to have been actively looking for work in the past 4 weeks. And there's still a lot of people who left the labor force in the pandemic who have not come back in yet, not come back in again. And so the unemployment rate, if we adjust it for a little bit of misclassification of workers, that in the way that, it's hard to collect the data in the pandemic, and there's some difficult questions that that lead to some ambiguity about whether somebody's working or should be counted as employed or unemployed. But the main thing is, if you take into account how much the labor force has declined since February, when you add that in, you get an unemployment rate, a realistic unemployment rate that's closer to 9%. So there's still what we economists would call economic slack in the labor market. There's room to expand. There's room to pull people back in to the labor force to start looking because they're more likely to find a job. If you don't think there's a job out there for you, you may not be actively looking. But as we get jobs reports like Friday's, that suggests that there are job openings and people are coming back, and so we hope to see going forward that labor force participation, the share of the population with a job, will be going up, and getting back to ideally back to February levels, because those were quite good, quite strong.
So the realistic unemployment rate, not the 6%, could be almost 9%. Give us a frame of reference. When was the last time that it was that high at 9%?
Well, we didn't used to count a realistic unemployment rate. That's something that got introduced informally. It's not an official statistic. The chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, introduced it last fall in a speech when it was around 10, and it's been coming down, and now the new Biden Council of Economic Advisors is also they're still in my job. They're doing a real nice set of tweet threads on the employment situation themselves. So there's been a change in how the government agencies are working in the new administration.
Okay. Also, as you mentioned, a share population with a job in February 2020, 61.1%. It is currently 57.8%, the share of the population with a job.
That's right.
The number of long-term unemployed, those are individuals 27 weeks or more, folks. That's 4.2 million, up from 1.1 million in February 2020. More than 2 in 5 unemployed workers, 43%, are long-term. Average duration of existing unemployment spells was 29.7 weeks in March, and the median duration was 19.7 weeks. 5.8 million people were classified as working part-time for economic reasons this past month, meaning they were involuntarily working fewer hours than they would have liked. That is down from a peak of 10.9 million in April 2020, but still 1.4 million higher. So that number has come down. The U6, the unemployed, plus people who want a job but not counted as unemployed because they haven't looked in the past 4 weeks or more, plus involuntary part-time workers, 10.7% in March of 2021, up from 7.0%. So that's somewhere in that middle is where you get that 9 that you spoke of. But the full U6 is 10.7. And then there, and if you follow Chad on Twitter, folks, at Chad CBPP for Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, Chad CBPP, you see all the nifty graphs that he has. The job losses have been the greatest in low wage industries, correct, Chad?
That's right. And in fact, so that's right. So leisure and hospitality. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. You need to get that.
Sorry.
That's okay. You don't need to answer it, do you? It's not urgent, is it? You need to answer?
No.
Okay,
no.
cool. All right. You good. We're good.
Yeah. So the the biggest job losses were in leisure and hospitality back at the beginning of the pandemic, and fortunately, as the economy is strengthening somewhat, those jobs are starting to come back, but they're still the deepest hole. So we have it's not a contradiction, but it's the fact that's where the job losses is in jobs that pay low wages. And as the economy recovers, some of the bigger gains that we see in any particular month are those industries coming back. But just like the overall job picture that we talked about at the beginning, that we're still in a deep hole, low wage workers who earn low wages, working in industries that pay low wages, are also still in a hole, even though there's recovery going on.
Those with lowest wages had 31% of private sector jobs in February 2020. 56%.
Right.
Wow. So 31% of jobs, but 56% of losses.
Well, yeah, they accounted for 31% of the jobs in February of 2020, and the job losses since which has lowered how many people are in those industries. The job losses since they've experienced 56% of them. That's down a little from the worst, but yeah, that's where people are hurting. And guess what? Low paid workers. And
right. And obviously too, many of those low wage jobs are jobs that require physicality or physical presence. The higher wage jobs you can do, like we're doing now, work from Zoom. And so obviously that's why the low wage workers, because of the need for physical presence, leisure and hospitality and whatnot, that's the reason they're taking the biggest hit.
That's it. That's exactly right. And that's why it's so important for the vaccinations and the other measures to the continued masking to get the virus completely under control, so that the economy can get back to something that looks more normal. And the major beneficiaries of that will be the people who got hit hardest in the pandemic.
So something we've talked about before, state and local government. 1.2 million jobs since last February lost, mostly in education. 378,000 of those jobs excluded education, but 862,000 of those jobs included education. So education is taking a big hit because school buildings have not been open. Yeah.
And actually, it's kind of the same story as with low paid workers in low paid industries, that second to leisure and hospitality, state and local education was one of the biggest contributors to the job gains in March. But the hole is so big in those state and local education jobs that that it's still a big number. But it's getting better, and of course the opening of schools really matters, and getting the kids back in class, getting the bus drivers back working, getting the cafeteria workers back working, as well as the teachers.
Well, and so I guess to the other point, and we touched on this, it's last month, but you have updated numbers. Workers of color, especially women, likely to lose jobs in this crisis, and that's clear, especially women. Black women being hardest hit of all, 8.8% job losses. Hispanic women, 7.2% job losses. So I guess then we can hypothesize that many of these low wage jobs and many of these education jobs are Black and Hispanic women.
I think that's right, and especially some of the support workers in education. So that's right.
Yeah, I mean those are the jobs they have; those are the jobs they're in, and so they're hit harder For Black men, 6.7% in job losses. Hispanic men, 5.4%. Asian, I'm sorry, Black men, 4.2%. Hispanic men, 4.1%. Asian men, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Have now I'm just interested. They have Asian men have suffered greater job losses of 5.7% than Black and Hispanic men. Huh.
Yeah, that it's there were interesting changes in patterns this month, or maybe some volatility in patterns. First of all of those folks have all of those groups have are the job losses are down considerably from what they were in April. April was the cruelest month.
Yeah,
for job losses, and everything was awful for everyone in April, and the gain and the gradual improvements since then have brought those job losses down. They're still quite large compared with February, and but it had been the case. Well, the Asian American unemployment rate actually went up this month. It was the only group that went up, but I don't know the extent to which that's a statistical issue, because that's a smaller group in the population survey from which the data are derived. So there can be more margin of error around the estimate. I'm not sure of that, but that's one possibility.
But of course, I'm sure we have to account for the social factors that are taking place right now.
Right.
And I mean, at least that has to be in consideration. And so that's very interesting. Okay. Share prime age population with a job. In February 2020, 75.9% of the African American prime age population had a job. That's down almost about 5 points, 70.6. In February 2020, 78% of the Hispanic population, prime age population, had a job, down 5 points there, 73%. All right. 81.5% for the white prime age population with a job. They're only down 78.2% in that category. And then here's something else, and we wonder if this also plays into these high numbers. Workers without a bachelor's degree have experienced the largest job losses, haven't they, Chad?
Yes, and substantially higher. People with a BA and higher, workers with a BA and higher, their job losses are small, very small compared with February. Whereas the others, those with less educational attainment have higher job losses. The group of people without a high school degree have the largest losses, but high school is down substantially compared with BA and higher, and even high school plus some college is down significantly more than people with BA or higher. So educational attainment and everything's interrelated. You know, the Black and Hispanic unemployment rates and job losses, the educational attainment. There's a lot of history behind those statistics that should be taken into account in understanding what's going on there. That you know, our history of discrimination, ongoing discrimination, means that you're less likely to go to college if you've been experiencing that. It's even people with college degrees, Black and Hispanic workers with college degrees tend to get jobs less suited to their qualifications than white workers. Some studies show. So there's a big pattern underneath the the cold statistics that we should take into account. It's people are trying hard, and they have bigger barriers to overcome.
And also, foreign-born workers are doing worse than those native-born. So I'm sure there's some overlap in those numbers also, especially when it comes to Hispanics and Asians. Their job losses are about 2 point. Foreign-born workers overall, their job losses overall, men, women across the board, are approximately 2 points higher in job losses percentage-wise than native-born workers too. So that's obviously having some impact as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole bunch of factors, but one thing that we talked about earlier is the nature of the recession, the fact that it was jobs, low paid jobs that paid low wages, and it was so those are the ones that went down the most and have come back more slowly, and they're disproportionately, the workers there disproportionately are people without college degrees, Black and Hispanic, women, especially in the spring and early summer. So there's a certain collection of forces operating on particular groups of people in this pandemic that made it really, really worse. We've seen some narrowing. Women used in almost any of the statistics that we've talked about, women did worse than men for most of the period, but those gaps have narrowed pretty substantially in the last couple of months. There's still an issue for moms taking care of kids who aren't in school yet, or who have trouble getting daycare responsibilities. But on the whole, there's been improvement. That's not to say that everything's better. Everything's back to normal, but there has been improvement.
So do you see, Chad, us being on a trajectory for things to continue to get better? Does the rescue plan help that?
Absolutely. The rescue plan does some really important things to relieve hardship for unemployed workers, but also for it has made major impact on child poverty. Families with kids, low-income families with kids get a substantial child tax credit, even if they're not working, which is a big change. It's temporary, but that gets people who have kids and are low income, gets the money, and they spend the money, and there's boost to SNAP, food stamps. So yeah, I think that almost all forecasts see really strong growth over the rest of the year and into 2022. So we may get back into a rapid recovery mode. As I said, the job creation doubled from what it was in February and doubled in February from January, and doubled in March from February. Now, I'm not saying it's going to double again, but it's going to be higher. I'm willing to bet next month. In successive months, as we talk, we're going to be seeing a shrinking jobs hole, and more people coming back into the labor force. Good stuff, but we can't forget how big the hole is now. So it will take some time.
Yeah. Let's hope it gets there. Chad Stone, Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Check them out at centeronbudget.org. Also, check out Chad's charts on his Twitter feed, Chad CBPP, so you can keep up with all of it. Chad, as always, we appreciate you, my friend.
Happy to do it.
All right, folks, don't forget to check out at Chad CBPP on Twitter.